Okay, by the sound and the sight of the train, it is one for the road. And at the end of each and every show, I give you my one for the road. And we thought we'd continue with the theme that we started this week out with, where we are, well, now we're less than 500 days away from the 2026 World Cup. And we thought, all right, what would happen if the World Cup were starting today? And what would the U.S. men's national team lineup look like? As we said, still got a little less than 500 days. Things can certainly change, but it's an interesting little exercise for a number of reasons, not the least of which is I'm not sure it's that surprising, Mossi. So when I take at my 11 here, Matt Turner. We've said that there is an opening in goal, and I do think there is absolutely an opening in goal, but the incumbent, Matt Turner, he's going to continue on. Yes, you have Stefan now kind of re-emerging and waiting in the wings. Schulte, Freeze, Ethan Horvath. So there are a number of people that have had opportunities, but nobody yet has grabbed a hold of it with both hands. Same can be said when it comes to the back four. Now, we've talked a lot on the State of the Union, Mossi, about the back four and the center back pairings. I know this has been something that you've talked about a lot, and it remains an open position. So much so that, speaking of old men, you got Tim Ream, who's continuing on in the back there, and I still have the starter from the previous World Cup, Walker Zimmerman, even though he hasn't featured a whole lot with the national team, still for me as good and maybe even better than the folks that have kind of, shown their wares over the last few years. Now, that's a problem. That's not a good thing. This is a problem, but this is the reality right now. Jedi Robinson over there on the left-hand side, I don't think anybody is going to argue with me on that. He is in pen over there. Now, give us a little bit of license here when it comes to the right back position with Serginho Dest. We know he's had a long-term injury, but he's back in terms of running and moving. And let's just say that Serginho Dest is even 80% or 85% of what he once was. I don't think there's anybody even touching him when it comes to that right back position. Although Joe Scally is in there, Fossey's in there, more, but still, if Serginho Dest is available for Pochettino, he is playing in that right back position. All right, let's get to the midfield. And again, the usual suspects. Remember in the previous World Cup, this trio in the middle with Adams, McKennie, and Musah. I'm going with the exact same trio. Obviously, they will be 4 years older come 2026 with all of that experience. They've been through some interesting changes, both in terms of changing teams, in terms of being in and out of their club lineups, and in terms of injury when it comes to someone like Tyler Adams. But knock on wood, Tyler Adams is back, so I'm going to stay with those three right there. I'm also going to stay out there with Christian Pulisic, Captain America, having probably one of his, maybe his best year as a professional when it comes to AC Milan, and he's still doing it with the national team out there. And I'm going to keep him on the left-hand side, Mossi, because I like him at that left wing. I know a lot of people like to move him around. I want to keep him where I think he's best, which is on the left-hand side. And speaking of best, over the last cycle, I still argue that Tim Weah has been the most consistent when it comes to the U.S. men's national team player. So I'm continuing him on the right. And then up top, there's a new sheriff in town. Remember about Balogun and all that kind of stuff? And this is a continued tryout up here. But right now, if it were to happen today and I had to pick, I'm putting Ricardo Pepi up top. Now, that means that there is still a lot of talent on the bench. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but keep in mind, players like Gio Reyna, players like Balogun, players like Aronson, these types of players now cannot get into my 11 right here. Mossi, thoughts?
First off, I'm wondering about the formation because we've seen the U.S. under Pochettino play with a back three, more of a 3-4-2-1 look. And in that scenario, there's a world in which Serginho Dest and Yunus Musah are battling for that right wing-back spot. You would play with three center backs, Adams and McKennie sitting in the midfield, Jedi as the left wing-back, and then either Musah or Dest as the right wing-back, and then a front three of Pulisic, Weah, and Pepi.
Yep.
It's a lot of the same players, you said, but formationally that changes. I agree with you on Gio. Right now he's on the outside looking in, which is amazing considering all the drama from the last World Cup. Here we are approaching the next one with a manager other than Greg Berhalter, and yet there's still going to be this debate about Gio. The only other change I would make is Walker Zimmerman. I would probably put Chris Richards in place of him. I know he's been inconsistent, but I think he offers a little bit more at this point than Walker Zimmerman does.
I absolutely thought about that, and then I came to the realization that I'm just changing to change because it does scare me with these older players right here. I'm saying, all right, I just want somebody new in there. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to just put somebody new in there because there's another World Cup and it's another cycle. And again, this is a lot of these things are a glass half full or glass empty type of situation where you're saying, okay, some of these players, we saw them still as kind of teenagers and growing up. And now we're going to kind of see them performing in their prime. And so it's logical that if they've continued on that trajectory that we were thinking about, that now we get to see them in the World Cup. And they're that much older, that much more mature. And you can look around and see a lot of these players that have continued to grow.
And Joe Scally, who you mentioned, does offer that flexibility if Pochettino wants to toggle between a back three and a back four within a game, because he can comfortably be that third center back and also just a right back with Jedi dropping back into a left back role. So I think that elevates him a little bit. And yeah, the position battles I'm looking at, Pepe versus Balogun for the next year and a half is going to be fascinating. And then in goal, if Matt Turner doesn't start playing regularly at club level, who else emerges? We've been talking about that lately on the pod. Doug McIntyre discussed that in his piece he just put out. Is it going to be Schulte? Is it going to be Matt Freese? Zach Steffen? Who's that next guy that's going to put pressure on Turner over the next 18 months or so?
So I did the glass half full way of looking at this, and that is the young players that are now grown and evolved into these mature players that we're going to finally see them play in a World Cup, at their peak, if you will. But the glass half empty is that there are still a lot of question marks when it comes to this team. And now, as we said, less than 500 days until the World Cup, you're looking at two center back positions as far as I'm concerned. Still up top, a striker position, and some more depth, and even some players, when you're talking about the likes of Gio Reyna, that you thought would be further along. And that's a little disappointing that they're not, and it's a little concerning that at this point, there are still a lot of question marks when it comes to this team. But a lot can happen in now less than 500 days, and a lot needs to happen in less than 500 days. Anything else, Mossi?
It's a good-looking team.
All right, well, that's my one for the road, and that is the end of the show. Keep downloading, keep rating, keep subscribing, keep doing all the different things you do out there when it comes to the State of the Union. Oh, yeah, keep pounding that button away over there on the old subscribe button on, what's it called again? YouTube. Smash, left, right, up, down, doing all the different things that you do over there. Keep checking out all the different things that we are doing here on the State of the Union. Oh, and by the way, Doug McIntyre, as Mossi mentioned, check out his article that goes into a whole lot more depth when it comes to the 11. And tell us, what is your 11 if the U.S. started the World Cup right now? We'll talk to you again next week. And until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.